When I saw the photo of these hands just to choose a model for myself, I couldn't even imagine that something like this was waiting for me. Just look at how the ingrown points, I can't even say they're not cut, they're picked at so much right down to the sinuses. And plus, the pecking shape itself. By the way, this is how the hands looked with the coating. At first glance, nails are just nails, albeit with slightly picked cuticles. There's a slight tendency, the nails are kind of claw-like, and I thought maybe they just have a lot of material on them. But of course, when this model came to me, and I was able to take a closer look at these nails, I realized I was in for an interesting adventure. Because besides the fact that the nails grow downwards a lot, there's another problem called hyponychium, which had grown there to such an extent that I thought there probably wouldn't be any way to properly lift and file these nails. Because when the hyponychium extends far beyond the fingertip, like it really sticks out, it definitely creates a certain difficulty. By the way, at some point I realized that there actually wasn't much product on there. At first I took a bit with rough blades, thinking I'd have to file off a lot, but while removing the first nail, I realized I needed to switch bits, so I took a softer one. Here I have a blue band. It's a Christmas tree bit, and it has, let's say, fewer abrasive sharp blades. Because actually, there isn't a lot of material on the nails, and that's just their natural shape. So I'm in for some very, very interesting adventures because I realize that here I'll need to lift, but not in the usual way. So the correction is going to be really, really difficult. The only normal finger, in my opinion, is the ring finger. So it's more or less fine without any obvious problems, and I'm not even talking to you about the cuticle yet. By the way, the girl honestly admits that yes, she used to bite her nails as a child, then she started getting nail coatings, and the problem of nail biting went away. But another problem appeared. She started picking at her cuticles with her fingers, her nails, and so on. She demonstrated various methods for achieving this. Ultimately, we develop a skin condition around the nails. If you have a client like this, the first thing you should tell them is that they definitely need to see a psychologist. A manicurist can help here, which is what I'm going to do. The very first thing I'll use is Manicure talc. I'm not being stingy with it here. I need it to work well. I have talc, and I always use this particular talc. After the nails have, let's say, soaked in the talc and everything has dried as much as possible, I'm using a red-banded flame-shaped bit with a sharp tip from KMIS. I chose this specific bit for a particular reason, because I understand that when people pick at and damage the skin around their nails, even though it looks quite rough, it's actually very thin. And just remember the index finger, because we're going to have a lot of different adventures with it, so we work very carefully. The video here is sped up. I just wanted to show how many manipulations are done on a single finger. So this is far from a standard procedure. It's not just a manicure that takes an hour or an hour and a half. You'll really have to work here, but actually only the very first manicure will be difficult. After that, the effect should accumulate and intensify, of course, provided that all the rules for nail care are followed. As for the number of rotations, right now I'm working with the SP130 device in my hands. I think it's already famous and well known to everyone, the very one that practically doesn't make any noise. I have to constantly check if it's even working or if I forgot to turn it on. And as for the rotations, I have about 20,000 here. The movements aren't actually fast, the video is just sped up. I'm working in forward and reverse, meaning in both directions, very carefully. And the most important principle here is that under no circumstances do I apply pressure to the nail plate. Because this way it's very easy to make cuts and thin out the nail plate, especially along the sinuses and the side walls. The hand piece of the device is shown, we absolutely don't need that. And yes, it has as many as 50,000 revolutions, but to be honest, I never work at 50. In the comments, mention the maximum speed you drive at. I'm continuing to work with the same bit at the same speed. Let me remind you, my bit has a red ring and I'll show it to you up close. This is how it appeared initially. I've cleaned everything here to the best of my ability. Growth points have simply shifted into the sinuses. The key is to not overdo the treatment. A super clean deep manicure is unnecessary. Because she was already picking at it here before, knowing when to stop is truly priceless in this situation. Now we're moving on to the trimming, and this is where the real fun begins. There won't be any straight cuts here, or perfect little rolls, or anything like that. The main goal here is to try to even everything out as much as possible by trimming the cuticle. So the manicurist's job in this situation is to clean and smooth everything out in such a way that she won't want to pick at or scratch anything for as long as possible. I'm using scissors with a curved tip from a brand I've been working with for I think 3 years now without switching, and this is the model. Here's the letter in the name, and it actually indicates that the tip is curved. Look at how convenient this is to use. By the way, yes, I'm showing you right now. As promised, here's a mandatory mess up. She had the most dangerous spot right here, and it was picked at. I'm attempting to get in there, and it's about to occur. It's likely happened to every technician, and I'm not embarrassed to share it. I think that, especially with nails like these, it can definitely happen. I wouldn't call it normal, but it can happen. What should you do in this situation? I have special astringent products that I just apply to a tissue, not directly to the wound. That's important. I wipe it off, and if necessary, I can do so several times. So the purpose of this liquid is that in the place where we have a little hole, it helps the blood clot faster and therefore close the entry for infection. After all the procedures are done, we just continue working. But of course, I try not to touch this area anymore. We still have the polishing stage ahead, and there I will also avoid this area. As you can see, the cuticle is absolutely uneven, so the cut is as neat as it can possibly be. So, some fingers look better, some look worse. Basically, the ones that were easier for her to pick at are, of course, in a worse condition. But nevertheless, even though the work was difficult, I found it very interesting. And I really enjoyed working with this model a lot. For those who will ask in the comments, Elena, how fast do you do this kind of manicure? Unfortunately, I can't tell you that I do it super fast. Because, first of all, it's a shoot, which is always a bit inconvenient, and secondly, we have a more challenging task here. This is an extremely unusual situation. Hoping to complete this type of manicure in 1.5 to 2 hours is not realistic. The hands themselves are new too. You know that feeling when you need to figure out what to do with your hands? And here's the moment when I'm explaining to this girl that actually her cuticle line is way too high precisely because she picks at her nails. And I'm trying to explain that when she stops doing that, first of all, there won't be such a pronounced cuticle ridge, and secondly, it will settle against the nail plate, lay flat, and then the nail will look less hooked. Well, the so-called graphotic nail. So the situation will improve at that point. Next, we move on to buffing, and here, actually, everything is important. I'm currently using a 50 diameter ball with a blue stripe. I'm also using KMIS, meaning all the burrs in this video are from KMIS, all diamond ones, and the device is the same. And here's an important point. The rotation speed is currently about 4,000 to 5,000 revolutions per minute. So it's really, really low, and I'm polishing with quite a bit of pressure. At the same time, the client doesn't feel any heat or pain. This is a technique at super low speeds. I really love it, both for e-manicures and for polishing, and here I basically have to polish almost the entire finger from all sides. The process was long, so I didn't include all of it in the video, because you would just fall asleep watching how many times I polished everything here. So, an important point, a large ball with a diameter of 50 and our speed is 4,000 to 5,000 revolutions per minute. And don't forget about stretching the skin, so it doesn't get pinched or wrinkled. This is the key to success with this type of polishing. Remember, my aim is to ensure she won't want to criticize anything for a long time. Because nail biters are always trying to fight imperfections, and that's actually how they end up creating this vicious cycle. Next, I degrease everything using a lint-free wipe. By the way, here's a picture. Take a look. These are wipes from Domic, which I've been using for a long time, and they're my absolute favorite lint-free wipes. Because they really don't have any lint at all. Just look. Once the nails are degreased, everything is clean, smooth, and beautiful. After all the procedures are done, I assess the situation once again, and it's time to start restoring these nails. I'm not even talking about applying a coating, because here we really have to restore them. I picked forms with a strong curve here. Right now I have Shock Me in my hands, and I was choosing between similar ones. Well, not exactly the same, but similar forms. From Imenka. She also has a really strong curve there, but it seemed to me that Shock Me's was even stronger, so that's why I chose these forms. So in my opinion, they fit here the best. And it's important to understand that when we set the shape, first of all, we'll do it with an offset, and second, from the very highest point. Let's start our work. We apply the primer. By the way, I went on Wildberries and read reviews about this Shock Me primer. Many people report that the primer and base are ineffective, causing everything to peel off and not last long. And then I read that people for some reason remove the sticky layer from the base. Just in case, I'm letting you know that you shouldn't do that. The sticky layer on the base is exactly what we need for good adhesion. For the primer to help rather than cause problems, you must apply it in a very thin layer. And you need to spread the base over the entire nail plate so that there are no empty spots left. Cure the base for 60 seconds, try on the form again, mark the free edge for yourself, and take a beautiful gel. Also from Shock Me, in the natural shade number 2, you can remember this because it will look super nice on the nails later. What am I doing now? I took a small brush and just a tiny bit of gel. And right on the spots where I have the most problematic areas, meaning the stress zone, the filed points, and the ingrown area. I applied gel there and cured it a little. Next, I take a slightly bigger drop and will start forming the free edge. Since the gel has a medium consistency, not super thick and not completely runny, but right in the middle, it's the most comfortable for me to work with in upper forms. This gel is ideal for beginners. Next, cure it using the lamp and try it on. This is how it looks. All my stress zones are covered, so I apply the base drop, meaning the main amount of material. It's important not to go all the way to the very top, because we remember that we place the form from the highest point and a little bit with a gap. We will do that. As expected, things aren't going according to my plan. This is the anticipated mess up. Visually, from above, everything looks great, everything is beautiful, and I could have just not turned my finger over, not told you anything, and pretended that everything went smoothly. But nails are very complicated because their curvature is just incredible. Here, my model is helping me, curing it with a flashlight. By the way, the flashlight is also from the birthday boy. I'll definitely attach a link to it. We've cured it, and now I need to turn the nail over and fix any missing spots. I'm clearly missing some parallels because when I was shaping the form, I was afraid to lower it down enough. Because we always try to place it straight so that our nails don't point downward. But since the situation here is unusual, actually, I should have pressed the form even lower. That's the problem I faced, and it's also psychological. When you're always trying to make straight nails because it's super trendy right now, you can't press the form down exactly where you need to. Here, I had already gotten more or less used to this nail shape, and I started doing better, meaning with each finger it got better and better. And I plan to keep working with this model again and again because I want to practice applying upper forms specifically on such challenging nails. Here, by the way, I think upper forms are actually the best solution, because with such a hypernychium, honestly, I just don't know how else to deal with it here. But you can write in the comments if you have any life hacks for when your nail bed has just gone beyond the limits. And now let's see how it looks visually. So, like from above, when we remove our upper forms, they already look, well, more or less kind of nice. But what was happening inside honestly horrified me, because I realized that I had no idea how I was going to deal with it. Then, when it's time to file from the inside, I mean, like, okay, there's some kind of little bubble there. By the way, the forms fit worst on the ring fingernails, which I thought would be the easiest. And that's because the ring finger curves the least, so the form doesn't really fit it very well. Here I'm showing the second thumb, placing the form again, pressing it to the highest point. So you see there's very little material there. We always pre-cure with the lamp only in the cuticle area. We need the top to be cured, while the bottom should still be wet. Next, we build up the parallels, and still it looks like I'm placing this form incorrectly. Well, I am actually doing that partially, but on the other hand, there's another point. Since the nail bed is very lowered and grows downward, no matter how hard we try, we won't be able to place this form correctly. Because basically everything needs to be filed down. So it's a deceptively good looking moment, as if everything is great, and I'm like, look, see how little is left here. You only need to file the sides and the free edge, but the real nightmare will be hidden under the nails. I'm using a 100 by 180 grit disposable file from Shock Me. They included these files in my package, but they're the use and throw away kind, not the stick-on type. The grit is actually pretty decent, so keep that in mind, and the price is more than reasonable. And now we're moving on to filing the thumb, which looks absolutely great from the top. No questions here. You can see it's nice. Well, yes, there are some issues on the inside, but first we'll deal with what has leaked out. So, the two ring fingers turned out the worst because the shape here has such a big curve. Actually, it's this nail that doesn't fit us at all. But it's okay, I'll just file it a little because I had to tilt it a bit so that the nails would look more or less similar to each other. Next we start filing. Everything looks good on the middle finger. I'm filing it now. By the way, about the speed, well, it's about 18 to 20,000 as well. I adjust depending on the situation to make sure it's comfortable. And now comes the most difficult finger, which, spoiler alert, I won't be able to do completely because in my opinion it's physically impossible. First of all, brittle nails are the first problem, but there's also a second, less obvious one. The nails are very twisted, meaning we can see pieces of the nail plate that are just curling inward. And accordingly, since I have a very sensitive and overgrown hyponychium there, I don't have the technical ability to use a drill in that area. Despite my efforts with various tools like scissors, files, and diamond or carbide bits, I'm unable to succeed. I don't have the ability to bring this nail to a perfect condition the way it should be because there's a very, very sensitive hyponychium there. The only option I see when working with these nails to do everything correctly is to first remove the coating. And for a few days, yes, with breaks, tell the client to file down the free edge as much as possible, as close to zero as possible, in order to calm down the hyponychium a little. So if the length is very short, then there is a chance, but since the girl wears a medium nail length. And for a very long time, that's why we ended up with what we have. Actually, I cut out a huge number of my attempts and different drill bits that I tried to use there, but I couldn't get any further than this. I couldn't go past the hyponychium, so I was only able to open up the very, very edge. But after that, nothing else worked out for us. And it turns out that the nail wall itself is thick here, and from the inside, honestly, it doesn't look very nice at all. But when you have to choose between not harming the client and Instagram aesthetics, I choose the first because it's important to me that she feels comfortable wearing it. So this is how you end up with an unattractive nail wall. But after discussing and consulting with the client, we came to a mutual decision to leave it just like this. Yes, she will live with it. Ultimately, the top saved the situation for us, as the goal was not to create volume, but simply to cover up that top. But she says she wants some kind of color, just a little something cute. And at first we were considering using a base, but in the end we just decided to cover it up. The quickest option is a top coat with a non-sticky finish, and on top of that it slightly tints and adds a bit of shine. In my opinion, it's just super. The perfect option is this line of top coats from Imen, which includes some pearlescent options, ones with glitter and others with more pronounced effects. Basically, there are top coats here for every occasion. And since the girl who came to me works as an administrator at a clinic, just to clarify, she doesn't work with patients, she works at the reception desk, so it's okay for her to get her nails done. But still, there is a request from the management that everything should look more or less moderate. So you can screenshot Top Star Pink by Imen. This is the best solution in this case. While she's finishing drying everything, I took out the oil. Here I have grapeseed oil for the Cuticle from the Domix oil series, which I've been using probably since this line first appeared. And of course, I also recommended that she use oil in any unclear situation. Well, basically, I said she could use any oil she likes with any scent, but to be honest, for home care I gave her Monada oil, also from Domix. I have a lot of them, and I often give them to my models because I want to see the results. And understanding and getting the client used to replacing a bad habit with this new good one, because if you really want to pick at something, it's better to do it with oil, giving yourself a massage and moisturizing the cuticle. And then she'll have less desire to pick at her nails and they'll always look well groomed. Here's the final result. Rate it in the comments and feel free to be harsh. Yes, I know it's not perfect, but in the context of what's here, I can say for myself that this is the best I could do here. Well, at least in my opinion. Here I'm explaining how we put all of this together. Visually, I'm modeling this situation that we unraveled its length and directed it into the right, let's say, channel. By the way, if you look at these nails from the side, they still tend to grow a little downward. So they're kind of slightly curving down, but we physically can't lift them anymore at this stage. I'll keep working with her. For now, share your thoughts in the comments about clients with severely curved down nails. That's it from me.